How's it going, everybody? Jesse Pitela here with RedefineFX, and today I'm going to show you how to create this Thanos portal with EmberGen. We're gonna cover many of EmberGen's main features, ranging from beginner to slightly advanced. There is lots to learn, and let's jump right into it. Alright, so when you first open EmberGen, this is what you should be seeing. This is the default preset that it comes with. You can hit spacebar to pause the simulation, or R to reset. You can also hit Shift S to show the statistics up here. So there are a bunch of nodes here, but really all that matters to us are these four right now, the emitter and the simulation node. All this extra stuff is just basically adding the lights and the skybox and then rendering it out. So we're gonna grab this shape primitive, which is our torus. You can hit Q to move, W to rotate, and E to scale. So Q to move, you can move it freely. So I'll just move it up and then W to rotate and rotate it 90 degrees, or you can just type -90 over here. And I'll set the minor radius to 0.6 and the major radius to 4.8. These are the exact numbers that I used for my original portal. So move it just slightly above the ground. Now we need to extend our simulation grid, which is indicated by these pink indicators. So simulation node, and so we're gonna extend it on the x-axis, so maybe 250 voxel count on the x, and we don't need it to be as tall, so I'll just do 150 on the z and apply new resolution, and this will change the size of the simulation area. So now we can grab our torus again, move it to the front. Next, we only want to emit smokes. In the emitter node, you can scroll down to emission and set the fuel emission to none. I also don't want there to be any temperature because I don't want the smoke to be rising up. So temperature emission I also set to no emission. And for the smoke rate, I did 80. So now we just have some smoke floating around like this. And we need to somehow push the smoke to the right. So I'll just right click, force, line force. The arrow tells you which way it's gonna go. So W to rotate, rotate it this way and move it in the middle of our torus. And now you can just connect the force to the emitter force like this. And you see it's slowly starting to get pushed to the side. So in the force settings, I'll set the push strength to 10. You know, you can increase the twist to twist it around. So this is how you would make like a tornado. I ended up setting this to 3. Now the sky is a bit distracting, so you can just turn off the skybox to get a black background. And we can also hide the emitter at this point. So emitter volume, scroll all the way down and just uncheck show emitter. So you get just the smoke. So now we might want to brighten up the smoke a little bit just so we can see it while we work. But if you go under the emitter, there's no color options for the smoke. And that's because we need to go to the simulation node first and change the simulation mode from combustion to colored smoke. So now if I go back to the emitter, I have this smoke color option that just showed up. And I can play with the color wheel here to get the color that I want. So I'll just make it a bit brighter gray so we can see everything. And while we're here, let's go under pressure, because I need the smoke to be ejected out of the torus at more velocity. Otherwise it just creates this perfect ring. So I'll just increase the additional pressure rate for the smoke to 45. The random intensity of the pressure I ended up setting at around 35. So you can see in real time what kind of a difference changing these settings makes, which is awesome. You can also change the scale of this random pressure. So as I make it smaller and smaller, I'm getting these big visible waves. So I think I just made this around 0.2. You can also increase the random speed. So this is a bit hard to see, but it just creates a bit more turbulence in the smoke. So I think I end up setting this to around 10. Next, we need to somehow tell the smoke to be attracted to a point a little further back. So we're just gonna right click, force, and create a force point. I'm gonna connect it to the forces of the entire simulator because I wanna affect the smoke in the entire simulator, not just the emitter. Let's move the force higher up. Nothing's happening here yet, but I'm gonna move it to the end of my simulator box out here. And then you can start messing with the repel strength. So if you increase this value, it's gonna push the smoke away from itself like this. And if you set it to negative values, it's gonna instead attract the smoke to it. So I'm gonna set it to minus 1.5. And then we just need the smoke to dissipate a bit sooner. So for that, you can just very slowly start decreasing the additional pressure rate to negative values. Let's do minus 2.5 for now. All right, and I also want to enable fall off for the point force so that the smoke in the very front doesn't get affected as strongly, and it will help us eliminate this perfect torus shape. So under fall off, I'll just set this to linear. And then this sphere shows up, and this sphere indicates how far the force is reaching. So I'm gonna keep increasing the fall off radius until I get to about the front of the torus. And now we have to play with the pressure rate again to bring back that suction that we had before. So I'll set this to around maybe minus 13 and maybe play with the fall off radius more. So final number, I'll set the fall off radius to 20. We might have to come back to it. Next, we need to add some noise to break this up even more. So right click, force, noise, plug it into your emitter volume force here. And then we just need to crank up some of these noise settings. So if you want to know what exactly each does, you can hover over the setting and it will actually give you a little tooltip that says exactly what it does. But I just know that we need more noise, so I'm gonna give it maybe, 5 octaves. Okay, nice. Now we're starting to get somewhere. And I think we can increase the suction force just a little bit at this point. So back in the force point, I'm gonna play with the pressure rate a bit more. You can play with moving the force back and forward to see how it affects the simulation. Awesome, I think it's starting to look like a Thanos portal right here. Next thing we can do to randomize this even more is give some random movement to the torus. So we can use modulators for that. Don't be afraid of this, it's very simple. You're just basically adding some random noise to the movement of an object. So first you want to click on the primitive and you need to click on this button next to the rotation. If you click once, you're setting keyframes. If you click for the second time, it changes into this curve. And now you can plug something into this curve. So I'm gonna right click, modulator, and I wanna add a oscillator, which just gives you oscillation, meaning waves going up and down on all 3 axes. And I can plug this into the rotation for the shape. So it's gonna freak out because it's way too strong. So we can just set the type to be random noise and then lower the amount much lower. So I actually ended up doing just 0.8 on each axis. And I can tell that it's working, it's just laying flat, and that's because the base resets to 0, so we need to set the base again to minus 90. And now the torus is moving around just a little bit. You can decrease it even more if you'd like, so maybe I'll just do 0.6 on each axis to make it very subtle. So now we can start playing with the lighting and trying to make this look better. So under the emitter, I'm gonna change the color back to be a much darker gray, almost black. And we're gonna add some lights to illuminate this nicely. So first, maybe we can add the blue light in the middle. So I'll just right click, lights, point light, set the color to be like a nice blue and increase the intensity much higher. And you need to connect the light to the shading node. So connect it here where the other lights are connected. Now you can just move the light inside of our portal here. I'm going to make it more saturated blue and decrease the intensity and also decrease the bulb size to nothing. And I think it's still touching the wall, yeah, so you can just move it right in the middle of our portal. Next, I feel like the smoke is just too thin. It doesn't have enough thickness to it. So under shading, scattering, you can decrease the scattering of the light inside of the smoke. So you can just set this to 0 and get a much thicker smoke, or maybe just do a little bit, so like 5%. And under simulation, smoke behavior, you can check show advanced parameters for the smoke. And you can increase or decrease the dissipation of the smoke over time. So I'll just set that to 0. And if you want to hide the bounding box, you can just hit B on your keyboard to hide that. So that's B as a box. Next, we're going to add like a nice edge light over here. So for that, we can use the directional light that's already in the scene. You can turn it on and off to see what it does. So this acts like a sun. So you need to essentially just play with the settings here to control the direction of it and the elevation. So I'm sort of looking at the shadow on the floor to see where the light is coming from, and then you can just move it back, just rotate it, and then increase the light intensity. And you can also manually rotate it just like any other object. So I'll lower the intensity a bit, maybe 3.7. And I still need the smoke to be thicker. So under shading, we can increase the smoke density scale. And you can see what that does. That's darkening the smoke hole a bit. And we can also increase the smoke shadow intensity. So I'll just make that 100%. And I'll increase the smoke shadow density as well. So this really makes a huge difference. That's pretty much the #1 setting we need here. So I just want this nice white outline along the edge of the smoke. But now, of course, the front of it is too dark. So we're gonna make another light. So I'm gonna turn off this ambient light. We don't need that. So I'll just make another directional light. So right click, lights, directional, connect it to my lighting node. And I want this to just be illuminating the front. So I'm just playing with the elevation and the azimuth to control the direction of this light. And we can decrease the intensity quite a bit because we're going for the dark look. Also, the floor is a bit distracting, so you can just click on ground. And here you can select maybe just uniform color for the ground instead of the grid. And you can also change the primary color of the ground. So I'll just make it a bit more black, something like that. And then you can play with the ground lit radius. So I'll just keep decreasing that all the way until I just have a nice circle of floor only around the portal. So finally what you can do is go in the volume processing, and for the post process maybe you can sharpen the smoke a little bit, and under the scene node you can play with the exposure for the overall scene if you want to brighten or darken it up. And final touch, maybe the smoke could still be just a touch darker. So under my emitter smoke color, I'm gonna push it to almost pure black, increase the smoke rate to like 100 instead of 80. Now, if you wanted to increase the resolution of the simulation, you would just go under the simulation node and you can set the upscaling to 2x upscale, apply new resolution, and you're gonna get way more detail in the sim. But it is gonna start taking longer to simulate. So if I set this to 3x the resolution, now it's gonna start getting considerably slower, even though the detail is really beautiful, but it's not really real time anymore. So I'll just set it to X2 and this will be my final result. So obviously there's so much to cover and so much to learn. We haven't even touched on fire, explosions, GPU particles, importing meshes. So let me know in the comments if EmberGen content is something that you're interested in, if you'd like me to make more tutorials. If there's enough interest from you guys, I will be happy to do more, so definitely let me know. As always, if you found this tutorial helpful, I would appreciate a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.